Keep in mind that I don't make a video for every game I play. That may not be apparent given a couple of the absolute war crimes I've looked at on the channel. So when I say Legal Dungeon was a pleasant surprise, it would be reasonable for you to temper your expectations. A number of the games I play, particularly for law review, make me question my life choices. Unlike many other law review games, Legal Dungeon puts you in the shoes of a young detective responsible for reviewing criminal case files and recommending indictment or non-indictment to the district attorney. Despite the suicide-tinted glasses through which many of us view some video games, social media as a whole, and that embarrassing decision you made that one time 8 years ago, you know the one that keeps you up at night for no reason. Despite all that, I sincerely enjoyed Legal Dungeon. This thing is great. By the way, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I certainly don't want you losing sleep in the future wondering how great it could have been if you just would have subscribed to the Lecturing Dog channel. No joke, Legal Dungeon is clever, challenging, and rewarding. I've rage quit games before and not regretted it. I've never rage restarted a mission in a game before. However, after mulling over a seemingly innocuous clue buried in a record for a bit, I knew I'd screwed up, justice wasn't served, and I was going to be thinking about that mistake until that bastard was indicted. Serving as a police officer, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Would I be investigating crime scenes, doing deals with the mob, interrogating witnesses, shooting people who don't look like me? I just didn't know how the police perspective might square with my focus in law review. To my absolute surprise, Legal Dungeon has some of the most thorough laws, regulations, and interpretive decisions of any of the law review games I've played. There's nuance in the interpretation and application of statutes to the situations. It's not just, here are 4 choices and one of them is obviously correct, as is the case with many law review games. While it's a lot of reading and clicking the proper answer, I found the production quality much higher than many other games in the genre. Plus, sometimes the potential answers or issues aren't highlighted. A feature that initially frustrated me, but I ended up enjoying it as relevant facts and arguments aren't automatically highlighted or brought to your attention in the real world. Ultimately, your selections populate a report and prepare you for a showdown with the accused. Heck, the game will even allow you to make the wrong decisions, fill out your reports ineffectively, let guilty people walk, and perhaps continue your career, at least until the point that, like me, you're eventually unceremoniously fired with prejudice. Obviously, I'm excited about this one, and if law review is interesting to you, you should be as well. In Legal Dungeon, you review reports, statements, photographs, statutes, etc., and then face off against the accused in an RPG-esque battle of wit. Those battles feature a hit point system based on your character's experience and previous correct indictments, as well as visual representations of the verbal attack and counter that's common to interrogation. The suspects may even have a visual representation of a shield, which denotes some sort of affirmative defense or counterpoint they have to undermine your arguments. Any idea what fruit of the poisonous tree is? Well, it's relevant here. It's the most original representation of the interrogation or witness examination process I've seen in a law review game. It's great. Plus, these cases are far more in-depth than others I've played. If you didn't properly review the case file, you may end up exonerating the accused or unintentionally recommending non-indictment. Your argument may be flawed such that you recommend indictment, which may or may not lead to conviction, but that conviction can still be overturned on appeal. It's great. In an even better break from law review norms, the writing is excellent. I noticed a typo or two, but nothing that took me out of the game. I don't want to ruin anyone's delusions, but actual police reports and formal documents sometimes have typos. It's shocking, I know. While we're on the point of potential inaccuracies in police reporting, a particularly relevant matter here in the United States, much of the writing and story is analogous to the perceived corruption and bias in some U.S. police precincts. Luckily, the game isn't set in the U.S., so I never had to indict anyone based based on their sexuality, race, beliefs, etc. Nonetheless, the game directly addresses the absurdity of the mechanisms used to incentivize and promote officers. It talks about corruption in City Hall and the outside pressures on seemingly good cops just trying to do the right thing. It was a surprisingly timely game that didn't beat me over the head with "everything is terrible," and instead treated me to short but relevant poems and quotes. Even the way you interact with the game through a computer system called CIS and its helper Mini Jane was interesting. You can interact with just about everything on the screen, including your helper. You accrue money as the game progresses, with which you can purchase upgrades to your system. The developers did a great job with this. From the clear chart of potential story paths and dialogue encounters, to the way the game allows you to continue from anywhere you've previously completed, the devs obviously wanted the game to have replay value for those of us interested in it. To be fair, there isn't any voice acting, and the correct way to progress through one of the accused person showdowns was sometimes obscure, even to the point that you may not be able to finish the story. Realizing that I could pull up a call transcript took more than an hour for me to figure out. Plus, I sincerely can't get past Chapter 6. The guides are in a different language, and even using Google Translate hasn't helped get past the 3 game over endings in order to get the one "the story continues" ending. I even reached out to the dev via Twitter. Hopefully, I'll hear back. It looks like my playthrough, which I plan to post on YouTube, may be the most thorough English language walkthrough available. It's one of those video gamey problems where I just can't figure out what the dev wanted me to select. In Chapter 6, it's clear that the victim's request to not prosecute was given under duress and is therefore likely void, but I can't figure out what combination of items the dev expects me to select in order to reach that conclusion in the legal dungeon. There were a couple of those situations. Another included linking the incorrectly reported age of a purported victim to a prior criminal report instead of linking that incorrect age to the accurate age of the victim to discredit a suspect, which was a little bit frustrating. Anyway, hopefully you're smarter than me and can figure out how to progress to the conclusion of the overall story. I was having a great time right up until I spent 4 hours or so trying to brute force those last 2 chapters. However, even with all of that, it didn't stop me from having a great time with Legal Dungeon. Now, Legal Dungeon may not be wildly anime or focused on aviary and other wildlife from the late 1840s like 2 of the heavy hitters in the genre, but if law-centric games are of interest to you, I can confidently recommend Legal Dungeon.